Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Lan and I've been doing photography now for just over 1 year, 14 months to be exact. Now during this time I've been able to produce what I believe has been some stunning images, and I've just had the most amazing time out here in nature, enjoying incredible adventures doing so. My work's been picked up by several newspapers throughout New Zealand, including the National New Zealand Herald. I've won several awards, including first place in the Waimarino Art Awards for photography. Not only that, but I've been able to turn my passion into a very successful business. Now truly, before 12 months ago, I had no experience whatsoever in digital photography. So it is my hope that in this video I can give you the inspiration and motivation to achieve your own goals in your photography. So I'm going to give you my top 10 tips that I have learned in my journey so far that'll hopefully help you out in your own photography, and I'm going to give real life examples and how they've related to help me on my journey. So with all that said, let's get into it. Tip number 1, learn how to use your tools. There's an old saying that tradesmen are only as good as their tools, or I believe that tradesmen are only as good as the knowledge of their tools. So learn how to use them. Learn about camera settings. The tip I'd give you is just when you're at home, just sit with your camera, play with settings. There's not really any damage that you can do to it. Just play with everything, learn what everything does, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. You're going to make much more mistakes with these things before you start making beautiful images, I can tell you that much. Learn about lenses, learn about different focal lengths, learn autofocus, learn manual focus. Lenses also can have filters on them for various reasons, learn about that as well. Learn about tripod use. Also study into manual use of your camera. I would highly recommend this. Don't even bother with the auto settings, especially if you're doing landscape photography. Learn how to expose your shots correctly through the exposure triangle using ISO, aperture and shutter speed. This is just, I believe, a crucial element to your learning, and that's all based around the camera. So tip number 1, learn how to use your tools. Tip number 2, learn about natural lighting and the weather. This is a crucial element in your landscape photography. So study up on dusk and dawn lighting, golden hour, blue hour, and everything in between. Learn about the tides, all the elements of the weather. This is just such an important thing to learn in your landscape photography. It's a massive subject on its own, so it takes a fair bit of study, and learning to read the weather is a bit of an instinct thing as well. So it's about being out in the field, learning those elements, studying on it. There's several apps and things out there that you can get to help you with your weather predictions in terms of getting the right lighting at the right times, the different things, the different types of images that you want. A lot of it does depend on your natural lighting. So for me, dusk and dawn lighting is my most preferred. I also love blue hour. So these elements are things that I put huge amount of emphasis on in my landscape photography. So learn the weather, learn about natural lighting, and you're sure to get much better images, guys. Cheers. Tip number 3, guys, be curious, experiment. Now this probably relates to nearly every tip that's in this video, because each tip is a massive subject on its own and I'm only just touching on them. But just be curious, bring out that childlike curiosity that most of us lose as we grow into adults. Be curious with the land around you, be curious with your equipment, be curious with the weather and all the elements of photography. And I believe that this is just such a massive thing that we lose, and it's going to help you create much more unique images and bring out your creativity just by being curious with the things around you. So that's a massive tip for me. Be curious, experiment with everything, and you're going to end up with much more unique, better images. Tip number 4, guys, be patient. Be patient with your photography, especially landscape photography. Now I'm saying this because I absolutely have been guilty of this several times myself. Certainly when I first started out, I'd get to a location, rush, feel like I needed to capture a shot, and then I would end up with mediocre shots or, to be honest, nothing of any value. So patience is definitely a virtue. Make sure that when you get to a location, get there early, pre-lighting if that's what you're going for. Take the time to just enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the environment, enjoy your location. Have the patience around that. Find your composition and then take your time, go slow, and then capture your images. Also have patience around not rushing off either. Another thing that I've been guilty of. I've been at several locations before and there's been a beautiful sunset and I haven't been patient enough to hang around. And as I'm leaving the location, driving away, or I've packed up all my gear, boom, the most amazing colours and lighting has appeared, and I've really kicked myself in those moments. So be patient. It's definitely a big one. Tip number 5, guys, study composition. So this is quite a massive subject on its own. So learn all the fundamentals about composition. The rule of thirds, leading lines in your images, the diminishing effect, big to small, dark to light, wide to narrow. All of the fundamentals based around composition is certainly going to help you have much more pleasing images. I just want to say one more thing on this. Yes, you need to learn composition. It's an invaluable asset to have in your photography. But also don't let it become a problem or a hurdle in your photography. So you're out in the field, you're struggling with composition, or you see something that is really pleasing to you, but it might not go by the rules of composition. Take the image. Make sure that you're pleased with your own work before you follow any rules. The only rules in photography are the ones you make. So learn composition, don't let it become a hurdle in your photography, and you'll come up with some much better images. Tip number 6, guys, remember that it's your art. Now, what I mean by this is make sure you're going out in the field and taking images first and foremost for yourself, for things that please you. I got an example of this. I produced an image a couple of months back that I named the Kiwi Way. I'll chuck it up here. Now this image took a huge amount of planning, huge amount of study. It's quite a difficult image to take, and it takes a lot of things to align in order to capture it. Thankfully, I managed to pull it off over a 48-hour period up in the mountains. Now, when I went out and during all the planning, during the visioning of this image, there wasn't any part of me at all that was thinking of trying to please anyone else, or certainly not a thought of it going viral or anything like that. It was simply an image that I wanted to achieve for myself. When it was published, it garnered a huge amount of attention, and I'm really grateful for that, and humbled by the amount of compliments and all the beautiful things people have said. It sold a huge amount of prints, and the whole thing's been a great experience. But what I found ended up happening is I got caught in this bit of a trap where I felt like I needed to go out and capture images that were pleasing to other people, and I felt like I was forcing my work, and it wasn't a nice place to be. I ended up going out and just really struggling, to be honest, and not really capturing much of anything, because I started to lose a bit about, why we actually do this. And first and foremost, it should be about you. It should be your art, and you should be out there doing things that are for you. Now, if something happens to get picked up, other people like it, that's awesome. And we can, as artists, we can appreciate that, and there's a validation in it. But yeah, I certainly found myself struggling, and because I'm a bit longer in the tooth, I've quickly snapped out of that sort of thinking and forgetting about the system and social media, and I guess trying to please, or trying to take images to please other people. And now things have certainly become a lot easier once again, and I'm back out here in the field just enjoying taking images first and foremost for myself. So when you're beginning and you're starting out, and social media can be a vicious place, so if you're posting pictures and you're getting negative feedback and things like that, just remember that no one else whatsoever is qualified to judge your work except you. If you are happy with it, then that's all that matters. So just never forget that one. So tip number 6, remember it's your art. I'm just going to chuck in one bonus tip in this video. For safety reasons, always take a friend with you. Someone that is looking out for your safety and that cares about you and is actually watching what you're doing, making sure that there's no accidents or anything's going to go wrong in the field. Very important, guys. What do you reckon?
Safety first, team. Safety first.
Tip number 7, guys, is have a plan. So with landscape photography, it's always a good idea to have a plan. If you're trying to capture sunrises, sunsets, obviously you need to plan when that's happening, where it's happening, where the sun's coming up from. A really good app that I'd suggest for planning those sorts of things is called Photopills. If you're doing astrophotography, which I personally sort of tie in with my landscape photography, obviously you need to know moon cycles, when the Milky Way is most visible, all those sorts of things. So planning around your imagery. Another good thing to do is to use Google Earth. If you're planning certain locations, it's always good to use that. Google Earth's great. You can see, landscapes and and the different terrain and things like that before you even get there, so you can do quite a lot of your planning from home. So it's always a good idea to have a plan. That's tip number 7, guys, and that's going to lead me straight into tip number 8. Tip number 8, guys, is don't have a plan. That's leading directly from my tip before, to have a plan. Now, I think some of the funnest photography I've ever done is when I haven't planned anything, going out for a spontaneous shoot, just enjoying the environment and seeing what comes to you. Let your intuition, let nature speak to you, and it's not only really enjoyable, but funnily enough, you can come up with some pretty amazing images if you actually not over planning, not overthinking things. So tip number 8, don't have a plan. Get out there and just have fun. Let nature speak to you. Tip number 8, guys, is learn post-processing. This is a huge subject, and it's something that's very vital to our digital photography to learn. Luckily for me, when I first started out, I did put a huge amount of time into my post-processing, and it's certainly paying off in my work now. It's helping me turn my images from this into this. Now, there's a huge amount of content out there on YouTube alone. There's several books, there's lots of things, resources out there to help you in your post-processing. One thing I would recommend too is not just to consume without putting your work into action. I would recommend learning little things along the way and then putting them into action in your photos, so on and so forth. So you're learning little bits, putting them into action, learning, putting them into action. I think that's the best way, and then it's easier to remember your processes as you go, and you're going to end up coming up with your own workflow. Everyone has a different style. There's lots, basically endless ways of doing your post-processing, and again, what only matters is how you feel about your work. So your post-processing is what's important. You'll find your own style, and if you're happy with that, just go with it, and then you'll keep fine-tuning it as you go along in your photography journey. Don't follow a YouTube video and think that that's the gospel of all post-processing, because it's not. What it needs to do is you need to come up with your own workflow, your own style of post-processing, and you're going to end up having a more enjoyable time doing it, B, much better images. So tip 8, guys, learn post-processing. Tip number 10, guys, and my final tip, and probably my most important tip for you, is absolutely make sure you're enjoying the adventure out here. That's why we all do this. So never forget to just enjoy the adventure of landscape photography. Always take time to enjoy nature, enjoy the environment you're in, and you're just going to make the experience so much better for yourself. And when you're in that really good mindset, you're going to end up producing much better images when you're actually enjoying the adventure that you're on. So that, for me, is tip number 10, and I think the most important one. Now, with all that said, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to my top 10 tips for landscape photography. I hope that these can give you some insight and also just help you out a bit. I know that each one of these tips is quite a big subject on their own, which I might do some videos on in the future individually. But just follow these basic tips and you'll be sure to have, you know, a much more enjoyable time and also produce better images for yourself. So if you like this content, guys, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It all helps out. Like I said, I've just started out in all this, so any support is hugely appreciated. And again, thanks for tuning in and have a wonderful day and take care, guys. Cheers.